Hello and welcome to Red Books. I'm here with Liverpool author Jack Byrne, who's kindly brought in copies of his acclaimed trilogy, the Liverpool Mysteries series. So, Jack, you're from Liverpool, and I guess everyone in Ireland sees Liverpool as the 33rd county of Ireland anyway, but you've more of an Irish connection than that.
Yeah, I mean, Liverpool's famous for that, often called, the capital of Ireland, kind of ironically. But yeah, all my family come out of Wicklow, grandparents, all four grandparents. My dad left Wicklow late 40s, or no, actually a bit earlier than that, just at the end of the Second World War, I think. And I'm sure I'm sure, your listeners know, but there was a huge wave of people that went across, literally tens of thousands. They're looking at that period from the mid-40s up to like the 60s, 300,000 people from Ireland went across. So it goes in waves, we know about the famine and the million that, 2 million even that left the country one way or another during that period, but it's never stopped. I know it sounds a bit, but for me, it's like the Irish Sea, the ebb and flow. It's not static, it's dynamic, it's constantly moving and changing, and it constantly affects each side as well. I think that's the thing. I think for me, that's one of the most important things about these books, is that a lot of people see them separately. So people write about the experience of Ireland, whether that be, political, social, religious, the Troubles and all the rest of it. And people do the same in England. But I don't think there are that many that have captured that thing in the middle, that, which is, despite the Troubles and the history, there's, the people are joined in ways that are kind of like symbiotic. Every family in Ireland has somebody who went across to the UK at some stage. Maybe an older generation, an earlier generation, or maybe a young kid now who can't find a proper job. And so for me, the books are exploring that are part of that. And I think there's a real culture there that we just need to develop a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously our customers are going to like the books because of that Irish connection. But I think we get so many people coming in here, and I've told you this, who love thrillers. And this, I just finished reading Under the Bridge, the first book in the trilogy, and it is a wonderful thriller. And like the front cover says, a love letter to Liverpool with a touch of Peaky Blinders. Do you want to tell us about the first book?
Yeah, the first book is called Under the Bridge, and that's an area of Liverpool. It's the most southerly dock in Liverpool, Garston Docks, and the area closest to the docks is called literally Under the Bridge, because you have to go under a railway bridge to get there. And in the way that immigration works, it was also for a period known as Little Wicklow, because, the way it happens, somebody goes over, then, a brother, an uncle, a cousin, a friend goes over, sleeps on the couch, and, so you get a community developing. And that happens in every emigrant community. And it happened in Liverpool. So Under the Bridge is that connection to Wicklow. But there's, the other thing about emigration is that the people who emigrate originally are usually on the margins. They're not accepted into society. They have to fight their way in. And that sometimes involves, not being squeaky clean. You said the Peaky Blinders thing, but there's a reason for that. You push people to the margin and then they do whatever they can to survive. And that's, it's not a moral judgment, or it's the reality, and it's one that has to be faced. And, the quicker you realize that, the more important it is not to have people on the margin, to actually bring them into society, to give them a clear run at getting a decent future. And so they don't have to do, the things that some of, our community have done over time, like any community. But anyway, okay, so it is a thriller. And I'm kind of, there's two things about thrillers for me. One is they have to be good in order for people to engage with them. And if you do them well, then I think that they can be the kind of the investigation, if you like, is not just in the first chapter. There's a body found on a building site in this book, and the story is, how did the body get there? And the people, trying to work that out, they go through that history Well, the body got there because it was part of that emigrant community and because it was part of that life. And so you get struggles on the docks, you get corrupt police, you get all these things which are part of the life of that community. And it's going on around 2010, so you get a modern story about how that emigration affected, contemporary life. So you get both together. But yeah, it is a thriller, and if people like thrillers, I hope they read it but get much more than the whodunit, which you do get. You have to supply that, eventually.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But as you said, it is more than a thriller. It's that fascinating social history of Irish immigrants, but then the political play between the dockyard unions and organised crime, the corrupt police. It's really good, and you've obviously researched this a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from that area, so that helps a lot,
Yeah.
And it's about getting the character of the area as well as the people through. And so the thing about the docks, one of my earliest influences was a guy who is in the book. There's a guy called Bob Pennington. He's passed away now, but he was a docks organizer. In the 70s. I didn't know him then. I met him kind of later. Actually, when I met him, he was based in London, but he was part of a real thing of organising on the docks in Liverpool. And you have that trade union struggle, for people to earn a decent living. But then on top of that, Liverpool is, 75% Irish, but that's not all just Southern Irish. Liverpool's also the capital of the Orange Order in the UK. The Protestant Party stood and elected candidates up to the mid-1970s in Liverpool. Yeah. So it's not it's not a homogenous blob of Irish. Within that Irish, there are real contestant voices and real struggles going on. And I think all of that drama, plays into people's real lives. You can't avoid it, And so the book, I think, also tries to deal with some of that, the effect that has on people. Just this thing of Liverpool being the capital of Ireland. I know for many people in Ireland, they think that, and they think there's always a welcome in Liverpool, and it's a great place to go for a drink, and all of that is true, and it's great. But growing up, I grew up as a Catholic, not as Irish. And it wasn't just that my family didn't, bring Irish culture with them, and they didn't. They were working people. They didn't have a lot. They didn't have to work all the time and all the rest of it. The most Irish culture, if you like, was the Bachelors records and the Stereogram and the Clancy Brothers and do you know what I mean? And the sea shanties and that was it. But that again, going back, that was a conscious strategy by the council in Liverpool and by the education department. They originally, this thing of, the struggle in Liverpool, originally the Church of England, Protestants, didn't want Catholics in the school unless they adopted Church of England religion. That was never going to happen. It was never going to happen. And so the council passed over education to the Catholic Church on the basis that it not include anything to do with Ireland. So, I was educated in a Catholic grammar school in Liverpool. Never once, in history, geography, politics, anything was Ireland mentioned. It was literally, like a ghost in the room.
Fascinating, isn't it? Yeah.
Now, there are people, there was an Irish centre set up in Liverpool, and some people tried to maintain those links. But I think that, I've spoken to a lot of other people from the same kind of, time and place as me, and it's the same for them, because on top of them being emigrants, they were also in a time like the late 60s, 70s, 80s, where there was, a military struggle going on.
Yeah.
And you could not, have an Irish flag outside your pub, and you could not celebrate St. Patrick's Day, and again, there would be, you see New York and you see Chicago turning the River Green and so on. There were no St. Patrick's Day parades in Liverpool all the period that I was growing up because you couldn't publicly celebrate your Irishness in that way. You would have been beaten off the streets. And I think in 2012, they regenerated this, and now there's a St. Patrick's Day parade every year in Liverpool, and it's grown, it's getting bigger. But the first one they did in kind of modern, contemporary times, they were literally chased off the streets, police and right wing, and calling it an IRA march. Because anything to celebrate Ireland was you must be the IRA.
Incredible, yeah. And do you think all of that, mesh of culture, that the fact that you knew people that were involved in the unions, do you think that's where the nucleus of the book came from, or did you just have an idea one day that I want to write a thriller, and then these influences just came into it?
No, I've always kind of known I wanted to write. The first time I remember trying to write, I was about 16. I was upstairs in a council house in Liverpool, and I tried to write a biography of my dad, because I just thought, what must it have been like to leave one country, come to another country? What kind of process would you go through for that? I got half a page, and my dad was a painter and decorator. I'm sure you could write a brilliant internal monologue of his life. He certainly saw a lot, but it was never going to make the top shelf of the biographies, and I could never have written it. But I knew that there was something there, and then that was, it was kind of rammed home. It took me, I think it was over a year and a half. I did quite a number of interviews, as you do, and stuff, newspapers and, radio and stuff like that. But the first time I mentioned this, and now I'm more comfortable with it because it's part of the story, and without it, I don't think the books would exist. I was interviewed by a guy in Derry for Derry newspaper. And I thought it was the appropriate time to say that one of my brothers joined the British Army and committed suicide in 1975. And it was difficult to do that, especially to say that publicly for the first time. But it's, it just brings together all these threads of, living. And, again, I loved my brother. He was what he was, but he was also an Enoch Powell supporter.
Right.
And we worked out, how do you get there? But he was into a sport. He was a footballer. He was a bit of a boxer. He was a real proper Jack the Lad type of thing. Parents hated him getting in the army, but he went off. He did it. He wouldn't listen to anyone, as you are when you're a teenager, And so, but for me, that kind of distilled this thing of, it's not one or the other, but there is something in the middle there that needs to be explored and developed. And people, I'm sure loads of people have family grown up in, cousins, nephews and grandchildren, all the rest of it grown up in England from Irish stock. It's a constant process. And so the books address that, but in the form of thrillers. I am terrible because I go so much into the kind of sociology in the background that I forget to say the really good reads. Do you know what I mean?
Well, they certainly are. As I said, I've only read the first one, Under the Bridge, and it's a fantastic read. I'm about to start.
Okay, this one, the second one, I hope you like it. It's some of the characters from the first book carry on, and this book is mainly set in Wicklow.
Okay.
And so the third book is back in Liverpool, but it's that ebb and flow. That's what life's like. It's not clean. Nobody ever leaves and then that's the end of the story. Well, actually, there are some sad stories where that happens when people leave. And that's partly what the second book deals with. Kind of why did people leave in such numbers when they did? And again, you in Ireland will know this, but we also know it from our side of the water, if you like. And that is, the mother and baby homes, the women who are curtain twitching in the village because she's seen somebody she shouldn't, or she's done something she shouldn't. Babies being brought up as, somebody else's and the mother has to get away and all of that thing. And, so not just that, but, literally for money. The late 40s in Ireland, as I'm sure people and their parents and grandparents will tell them, was a really hard place to live, to make a living.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so people went. And again, so one of the questions this book asks is independence was won, for, the South in the early 20s. Was that, how deep a victory was that? And, was, the fight, the long historic struggle that produced that, what came out of it for the majority of people? And for those people who left, is it because that government failed them? And if that's the case, then people have to look back in order to look forward. I think and I hope that Ireland will be, one country again, within the next generation, certainly. But if it's the same as what happened the first time, then is that going to be such a great victory?
Very true.
But true. So it explores that as the social historical setting, but there is also a murder mystery in there as well. How did the guy who died, how did he die? And the characters from Liverpool go across. And that's interesting for me as well. They go from Liverpool to Ireland, and then the culture shock they face. Even though they're from that community in England, there's still a culture shock because people don't see you as Irish, plastic paddies and all that kind of discussion,
Yeah.
Sorry, I do go on.
No, it's really interesting. So we have Under the Bridge is the first book in the trilogy, Across the Water, and Before the Storm. So tell us where you can get the books, Jack, and how much they are.
All right, in the UK, I think they're $8.99, which is fairly reasonable. I think that's in pounds. But Wally's got a good stock of them, so you can get them off him. You can get them on Amazon, and you can get them through Waterstones and the UK publishers. But in America, you can get them through Barnes and Noble. I'm not sure what else, but the online sites. But you can order, in the UK, you can order from any bookshop. In Ireland, then it's a bit more difficult. You can ask them to order, but the distribution setup is, it's not so smooth in Ireland. But hopefully we can address that one day. But definitely from Wally. And I'm sure Wally deals with internet orders and postal orders.
We do. We'll have them on our website, theirishbookshop.com as well. So that's great. What's next, Jack?
There is. I've written a book that's finished, and the current title is Burning Down the House, and it's about the combination of the environmental movements and police violence, and it's set in kind of current times. I think it's 2020 in the actual book. So there's that, and there's one I'm struggling with, to be honest, but I'm kind of halfway through the fifth book, if you like. And again, that deals with social issues in Liverpool. So the more Liverpool-based, the more contemporary, and I hope it will be a trilogy number 2, if you like. Even though the characters flow on from these, it's kind of, these are the Irish diaspora theme. And the others are other issues that are dealt with, in contemporary society.
Well, we introduced you as a Liverpool author, but of course we're going to claim you as well because you're very soon setting up home in Wexford. Fingers
crossed, and everything works out. But it's I don't know, my wife's really keen on it. I'm okay with it. We have to see how it works out. But no, it should be good. Good. Looking forward to it.
Well, we hope to be seeing a lot more of you. Jack, thanks very much. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Wally.